And welcome back. It's now time for us to get into discussion. As I earlier mentioned, we are going to talk about the issue to do with KETRACO and between KETRACO and Adani, but most importantly, how Kenyans are going to be gaining in as far as the power construction is concerned in the country. And in studio, I have got engineer John Mativo, who is the managing director of KETRACO, joining me in studio. MD, welcome to our studios.
Thank you, Victor.
It's early morning, and I believe you are up to the task.
Thank you.
This is how we do it every morning. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Let me start where we should. So we are here talking about the power line construction in the country. I really want to start by asking you, how good or bad are we in terms of power supply? You know, from the northern part of Kenya to the southern bit of east, west, and east. How is the power supply in our country?
Thank you, Victor. Regarding that, maybe let me give the current situation, but I have to go back in time,
yes,
to explain where we've come from. We currently have approximately 9,000 circuit kilometers of transmission lines. This was when KETRACO was incorporated in 2008. We only had 3,400. So KETRACO has done a lot to increase the grid where we are. But when you look at international standards, two things. When you look at the world has approximately 7 million transmission lines serving 8 billion people. Simple mathematics, Kenya should be close to 43,000 kilometers. Again, international standards, for every distribution line that you have, 16 kilometers of distribution lines should have 1 kilometer of transmission, so we should have close to 20,000.
Yes. So
in terms of the needs of the country, I would say we are less than half of where we are, and it's because of the historical, where we've come from in history. I'll take a minute or two just to explain to us the history so that we can learn from it and agree to go forward in where we are. Kenya did, I think, the first transmission lines in the 50s when they did a line from Jinja. Then we waited a couple of years when, I think 1968, when we did the line, we started doing the dams in Masinga, and all the way to early 80s during President Moi's time. We put up a number of lines now from the hydros to Nairobi. So we only had a simple line from the border in Malaba all the way to Rabai. Then we had a couple of lines going across the country. Then we have to jump a number of years later, is when we did Takwel. That was 91. Then we started doing the lines from Olkaria to the rest of the grid. So that's how we ended up having a population of almost 40-something million being served by 3,000 kilometers of transmission lines. So that has left us in great deficit of where we're supposed to be. The grid, yes, has improved, as I said, but it's not optimal. We have serious constraints in the system. We have transmission lines that are, I think 3 transmission lines are operating more than 100%.
Yeah.
I know there's a blackout that was caused last year in that the line was carrying 140% of its capacity. So we have a lot of constraints in the system that you touch one circuit breaker, you end up having national blackout. This is not sustainable. Therefore, that's the need why we need to put transmission lines. And
is that the current status of power distribution in Kenya?
Power transmission.
Yes,
that's the current status of power transmission lines, is that we as a country are almost working in eggshells. I was telling people actually 2 days ago, we had a blackout just before midnight, partial blackout, which I'm sure most people did not pick that. So we're in a situation where you have some over voltage or something small happens, it trips the whole grid.
Yeah.
There's actually serious need to improve our transmission infrastructure. Others will be in really, really bad shape come a couple of years from now. Power demand has kept on increasing. Day by day, people are utilizing more power. We have seen, even in the last 3 months, every actually had 3 peaks in the last 3 months. So you can actually see demand increasing, and definitely there's always a fear that this line are going to be go beyond capacity and cause issues.
It must be an expensive venture to get into. Perhaps you could just take me through how much it has costed you as a company, as KETRACO, perhaps to do annual construction of the power lines that we have right now?
Okay, so far for the last, I'd say 14 years that KETRACO has been existing, the government, because so far the model we've been using is that a national treasury has been borrowing money from World Bank, African Development Bank, and other development partners. So the projects we have put on board, close to 42 projects, have costed anything in Kenya shillings between $250 billion. So that's the kind of investment we have brought on board to be able to stretch lines across the whole country. This includes the interconnectors to our neighboring countries. This includes lines to, because when we came on board, we still have many towns in Kenya that were being supplied using medium voltage lines, so the 3 kV lines. We also had lines in, for example, in places like Garissa, Lamu, that were diesel generators. So we displaced that and used transmission lines. Then just reinforcing the whole grid and being able to evacuate power. So those are and now the interconnectors, that's the kind of investment that has gone so far by government borrowing and on granting to KETRACO. Yes.
In terms of what should have been done to improve it, what do you think should have been done by KETRACO itself and even the government?
Okay, currently we have a transmission master plan that plans the needs of the country, and also as a sector also have the least cost power plan that has projected the needs of the country for the next 20 years. What we currently need is to put up close to 9,000 kilometers of transmission lines at a cost of anything like $5.6 billion. So that's the kind of money we need to put the infrastructure to ensure that we have places, new places that are supported by the grid. We have the grid reinforced. We have levels of redundancy that are available in the country so that not one area should be able to cause a national blackout. Kenya should be able to get 24/7 power supply, almost 100%.
Yeah,
and reliable power. That's what we should go to. Anything less than that, it will not sell to Kenyans and it will not sell to anybody who wants to put industry. Yeah.
Engineer, you talked about constant power supply, but in the last 2 weeks we experienced some serious power blackout in the country. What caused that?
Okay, this year so far we have had 2 national blackouts.
Yes.
Actually, from 2015 we have had like 14, but let me focus on this year and last year. Yeah, 14 from that. And these ones were caused by the lack of redundancy. The last one was actually, the previous, let me start with the first one this year, was caused by a circuit breaker that blew up in one of the substations. And that substation is where all the power that is coming from Olkaria, all the power that is coming from I talk almost 600 megawatts plus. You talk about another 200 megawatts coming from Ethiopia. You talk almost 300 megawatts coming from Lake Turkana, coming to the substation. Unfortunately, one of the circuit breakers blew up. Yeah. You know, circuit breakers, you have them next to your kitchen to protect your household. So that amount of energy that was lost caused the national blackout. So that's the one. The other thing, this latest one was caused by overvoltage in the system. Unfortunately, the voltages can get quite high in the system just because of both demand and the long lines that we have. So then the whole line, you know, the power protection system has also to protect itself. That caused the national blackout. Yeah. And if you go back again, last year we had 3. The one in August again was caused by a fault of a line between Athi River and the STATCOM in Lake Turkana did not hold the grid as long as it's supposed to be. But you have this, the previous one, actually the last one in December was because of the line between Chemosit and Kisii. So it actually from Moroni to Chemosit. That line is one that supplies power to everybody from Kericho, Homa Bay, Nyamira, Kisii, Bomet, parts of Trans-Nzoia, Trans-Bara, then it goes all the way, so it depends on everybody else. That line only has a capacity of 80 megawatts. I can assure Victor, the demand in that area is in excess of actually 180 megawatts. So sometimes during peak hours, to ensure as many Kenyans get power, the line operates at almost 140 megawatts. That is way above its capacity. Yeah. So just a lot of things have been done to ensure that the power is going out. So it's important that we build new lines, but also important that we have redundancy in the system. That's mandatory. So investment, and I told you we are talking about 5-point-something billion, multiplied by Kenya shillings, we are talking about anything like 600 something. That's the kind of investment we require for the next 20 years. That is approximately what I keep on saying is $250 million per year. That's the kind of investment we need to put in place.
So that requires a lot of reconstructing and even now revamping the existing power lines.
True.
Are you doing something about that?
Yes. Currently we are, between now and December, you'll see I'll be putting out tenders for 10 projects. 6 lots financed by ADB and the Koreans. That government has already secured the loan. We have World Bank bringing, so these are lines from Narok to Bomet. One of the things, this line, we already signed the contract, will allow power of anybody in that part of the former, let me say the former Nyanza province and part of Rift Valley South, will get supplied power from there. So they stop relying on the other line coming from Chemosit. Then we have lines to from Malindi to Weru to Kilifi. If you're driven between Mtwapa and Kilifi, you'll see the number of industries that have grown in that place. So we want to have redundancy. It can get supplied directly from Rabai or Malindi side. Then we need to connect from Nyanyuki to Rumuti. But World Bank is also bringing what we call STATCOMs. STATCOMs, for layman, let me make it very simple. They're devices that you put in the grid that manage the voltage. So this, I've talked about voltage. This equipment, we put them at Suswa and Rabai. even if the voltage is erratic, when it enters, it comes out, it tries to smoothen the grid, and we require more of that in the grid. Then we have big substations. So we have quite a number of projects already coming on board this year, plus a new national control center. The current one we used was actually built in 1988. Yes, it has been improved over time, but we get to a point where we require modern facility that can take care of more wind load, more solar load, and a lot of what the needs of Kenya. So we have quite a number of projects.
Engineer, I should take your word that looking to the future, we not have the national power blackout that we experienced in the past. That actually, in the last 2 weeks, we faced two.
Yes, and I can give you one good example because as we move now, I told you Suswa, all the power comes to Suswa, so it's just imperative that we have a redundancy. We have to have a different system. So we plan to build a ring around Nairobi, just like a 400 kV ring. This is almost equivalent to even London has a 400 kV ring. So you have a ring system that, if for whatever reason, either due to normal maintenance or due to something that happens that was not managed and planned, power can flow in different directions. So it gives more option that. Why
PIPs and PPPs in this kind of venture?
Now, as I said earlier, we require 250 million. Let's remember that.
Right.
If we don't invest in that kind of money, we go back to history where one day we'll come and pay the penalty for not having that infrastructure. So government is still borrowing some money to finance our projects. So that's why we have new projects coming on board. But government, all of us in Kenyans, we know that the government has get to a point where the fiscal space to borrow and the debt ceiling has almost hit maximum. So the government cannot borrow. That's one of the things. Secondly is these financials we're talking about, whether it's JICA, because they're financing the Kundu Marekani, it takes almost 8 years for financial to start a new project, to take all the way to completion and start a new project. So we are about to go to tender. So the earliest we bring new projects with the same financials as concessional loans is anything 4 years from now. So it has left a room where we have to agree as a country, do we invest? Do we bring the private sector on board? As long as they bring good resources, can they come on board and partner with government and put up infrastructure? It has worked in many countries, and that's what we are trying. These are our first pilot projects, and that's the journey we're walking through right now.
I'm trying to understand, because such kind of a venture, you must have some CV behind it. What are some of these projects that KETRACO has done that you can pride yourself in and say that this is what I can float to Kenyans, and now given an opportunity, you'll be able to carry on with the next project, given time and space?
As I said earlier, KETRACO has finished almost 42 projects, various voltages. So we have transmission lines. I think our biggest is one to Ethiopia.
But in this regard, with the PIPs and PPPs?
But the PPP, that's the first time basically been done.
Yes.
So that's why I said the pilot projects, that's the first project we're getting. So what KETRACO has spent the last 6 years or so years is definitely preparing for this. We've done a lot of capacity building. KETRACO has the most number of people who are certified as PPP professionals. This is international certification I'm talking about. KETRACO has spent a lot, the Financials Power Africa, African Development Bank, has spent time in terms of doing capacity building. Then you see the government also in 2021 enacted the PPP Act. So, which is very clear in terms of the steps to be taken to undertake a PPP or a PIP. That's very clear.
Okay.
Yes.
So, it's now all over in the lips of many people. The Adani Group. How did they know that there is need for power construction and power supply in this country?
Okay. This journey to move to PPP started a long time. Let me actually say, if you can go back to all the way to September 2016, that's the first time KETRACO put an advert out to look for PPP. We just started with consultants who have been there. And again, somewhere in July 2020, we also put an advert to get a transaction advisor to help us for military projects. So it has always been the market in whether it's the PPP unit that time, their website and our website about this thing. So there's always been the need for that. So many players, not just Adani. The first players to come on board, by the way, were Africa 50 in 2018. They're the ones who put the first expression of interest and said the market, they're interested in coming to a market. Africa 50 is basically a multinational body that supports private sector finance in Africa, equivalent of IFC in the world, but for ADB. So Kenya is a shareholder to Africa 50. So they actually brought the first expression of interest. Then later you had Adani coming on board. That was last year, early last year. Then you have EDF from France also putting expression of interest. So we have a number of people who have come on board. Adani is not the first. Adani is just one of the players that came on board and said we need to, this is an investment they're able to do. Yes.
They have a reputation, and in question, why was it Adani picked in the first place? Now that you've said that there are other people who also, gave out their proposal, why Adani?
Oh, thank you, Victor. Africa 50 has given a proposal for 2 transmission lines. One of them is to do a line from Kibos, Kakamega to Musaga. Anybody from Western Kenya will agree about the quality of power in Western Kenya is not the best. It's not something to talk about. And the other thing is that we have a lot of distribution losses in Western Kenya. So part of the bill is because of the losses that we want to reduce the losses by doing investment. They're also doing a line from somewhere called Losuk to Lesos to allow power from coming from the north, like Turkana, to flow in that direction. So they already have their projects that are ongoing. Adani have given 3 transmission lines and substations to be able to undertake. So they have different projects that have given their proposals, and EDF also has separate projects that put on board. So they're not the same projects.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is the process from the initial stages of having this proposal put on the table until where you are right now as KETRACO?
Yes, the first step is by the law. Definitely, they put an expression of interest. They're able to indicate that they're undertaking this project, which now after that they prepare their proposal, which the law calls it a privately initiated proposal. So they do the proposal. The law is quite clear in terms of what you're supposed to check. So they give the project. A team is appointed by a evaluation team, both KETRACO and the PPP Directorate. They analyze the project and confirm that it meets all the requirements of the law. Things like it has to be already a sector plan. Somebody cannot come and say, I want to build a line from Lamu to maybe Lake Turkana. It's not in our sector plan. So it has to be in the sector plan. They check a number of things, and the first level of diligence where they bring the documentation is done. Here I'm talking about Adani Energy Solution. So there are many things that are given as per the Act, and they're evaluated. Once the committee is satisfied, we go to the PPP the committee through the directorate, and they give approval. You can move to the next stage, which now the project development report phase. Now this is a phase you do a lot of studies. Now you prepare things, feasibility studies, both legal studies. You prepare environmental studies, resettlement studies. There are quite a number of things you're supposed to prepare, and that's the time now they give their proposal in terms of what they want to do this project for. Again, it goes through the whole evaluation. Once the team is satisfied, we go to the committee, and for this case, the committee even returned us back to get more information. Then we come back and they give an approval. Once they give an approval, sometimes it's conditional, sometimes it's not conditional, but they tell you, you move to now negotiations. Now that's the time now you start negotiating the terms.
Yes.
First you discuss in terms of all the issues of cost of the project. You discuss issues in terms of both environmental issues, technical specifications. You discuss legal issues. And there are quite a number of issues that are guided by the Act that you discuss. Then after that, you start preparing the project agreement.
Yes.
Now this will be like almost, for lack of a better word, the Bible that will be used to ensure how the transaction will be done.
Okay.
So this process, with, like, for example, Adani, we started on 10th of July. We have a draft. We're still continuing to go on 1st of October to continue. So the law gives us 6 months to finalize the whole process. So this is the Act, the document that will actually be the foundation on terms of how this transaction will be done. So they've given us their offer, the price of the project. They've given us the offer in terms of now the cost of money, and we have our numbers on the side, which we're still negotiating, the first thing I have to say, Victor, is that we managed to reduce the cost of the project by $280 million. We plan to push it down to by 320 million. So we plan to reduce that cost by 43 billion shillings from where they were at the beginning. So right now, they're still at 736. We still believe it should be below 700. And the good thing is that we have the advantages, KETRACO. We've done many transmission lines, different voltages.
Yes.
So when somebody tells me the price to do this transmission line is X, I tell him no. I can remove many examples, both inside Kenya and outside. When I remember at the time, for one of the projects, the one that given me Menengai, Olkalau, Rumuruti line. So they told me this is a price. I told them that same day in the morning I'd opened the price for Narok Bomet. So I showed them this is the price. I've done wayleaves, so taxes are just 30%. So that's what we're trying to negotiate to try to reduce. As we are confident, we're trying to reduce that.
All right. Now, so that proposal evaluation process is the PPP under Act of CAP 430. So where are we? What stage are we right now?
We're at negotiation stage.
Negotiation stage.
Yes.
Okay. So apart from KETRACO and Africa 50, which are some of the companies that were also involved and also flouted their interest?
I said, so you have Adani, you have Africa 50 that also came first, then you have Adani, then you have EDF. EDF is from France, is one of the companies from France. So then they're still at proposal level, there's still a number of steps behind. Yes. You know,
the project is also the proposal to have Adani is proposed. How will Adani recoup its money at the end of it all? You know, it's proposed that it's going to take like around 30 years or so.
Okay, let me go. Thank you for that, Victor. So they have the project. So once we lock the project cost, maybe in a few days or months. The other thing is the cost of money. So they put a proposal that this is the cost of the project. Let's assume it's 700, but they're still at 700 something, but we're confident. The second thing they say is that we are going to, how we're going to finance this project. We are going to put 30% of the project, but we're pushing them 25% through equity, and we have the rest through debt. So through equity, they are currently at 16% return on equity, and the other part is going to be cost of debt, which they are still at 11 point something. We're trying to push them down. So after this has been finalized, we need to confirm the act is very clear. The project always, the numbers have to ensure affordability. So we have to test the project for affordability. Affordability on two ways. One, to consumers, that's number one. Secondly, also affordability to the country, because the way the project is done, it can bring a contingent liability to the government. Yes. Because, for example, if the government was to make a law to nationalize the expressway, the government still has to pay for the infrastructure. Because remember, the asset is always our asset. So then there's the issue of value for money and issue of risk transfer. So all that has been completed, then we come we apply to EPRA for a tariff on the annual revenue requirement for the project. So we, at a certain point, we'll have to go to EPRA and ask them, based on on what is required by the project, plus also the benefits, whether it's reduction of losses and other benefits bringing, for them to give us a tariff based on that.
Yes. Yes. The engineer, there is that aspect of loss and damages. Will Kenyans get value for all of this process? Because the way it's out there in the public domain, it's very expensive, and Kenyans are going to get deep down to their pockets too. You know, the taxpayer is going to be overburdened. Is that the scenario we have right now?
No. Let me explain something here. There's no transmission line for free, so it is paid. Currently, all the projects I talked about that KETRACO has done up to date, because most of them loans were signed before 2016, the government is already paying for the loans. So if you go to the loan portfolio, government is paying for loans. And how does government pay for loans? Is by taxes, BNU. So one method is to pay the financing through the taxes. The other one is to bring private sector players to finance and pay the tariff through electricity tariff. So there's no free lunch. Somebody has to pay for it.
There's no free lunch.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why it's important for us to ensure that first, the project agreement we put in place does not have any clause, anything that is can a negative to the country. That's one of the things. Secondly, the price we get, because it's going to be paid. Yes. The price we get has to be affordable. There's no question about it. The price has to be affordable, because there's no way. I mean, and the benefits.
When you talk about affordable, what do you mean? Affordability now. The price has to be affordable.
Yes, I mean it has to be able to. Kenyans have to be able to pay. Okay. Based on, in terms of, you look at both. If a line, because I told you the losses are X. Let's look at the losses in Kakamega. Maybe the losses of power in that area are a certain amount of percentage. This line is coming on board, is reducing the distribution losses by a certain amount of money, and the quantity of power there's overflowing, because maybe a 33 kV line can only push 30 megawatts. Now you bring a line that can take maybe anything like 200 megawatts. So you see, there's the additional benefit that comes to people in that area to consume power and to grow. And you see, the moment the demand increases, economics of scale, also the cost of everything goes down when you have that. Yeah. So that's what the test that we're going to do at a certain time before we go to EPRA and confirm the numbers. Because fortunately, we live in a regulated sector. So KETRACO does not have the mandate just to say the price is 1 shilling more or something like that. That's going to be EPRA. But what we have to make sure that we give a product that means value for money and affordability criteria. What percentage goes to the government, and what percentage goes to KETRACO and Adani in this deal, if it goes through? No, this is purely, KETRACO does not make money from the deal. Good, that's a clarification. That's not whatever. Okay. Government makes 30% from the EPC cost during construction. They have to pay taxes unless it's exempted. So that's what the government pays. So the other thing is, now they get money, the annual revenue requirement, to be able to pay their loans that they've put in the investment and recoup the equity through return on equity. Yes. Okay. And Adani gets? That's what Adani gets. What I'm saying, Adani has invested money. Okay. So cost of debt is borrowed, so that one goes to the financials. Right. So there's return on the 30 or 25%. That's why they have the return on equity. That's now what they're saying. They want 16% on return on equity. That's what they make here. What's your proposal? What's in terms of voltage, in terms of power lines and kilometers that you really want to construct? What's your proposal? For KETRACO. For Adani, or just for KETRACO generally? Yes, for KETRACO generally and Adani. Okay, let me start. The bigger picture, as I said, which our transmission master plan targets 9,200 kilometers of transmission line. That's what we project in the next 20 years. Quite a number of substations to come on board. So that's the kind of plan we have. From those 9,000 kilometers, Danny is doing, I think, 300 and something. Then if the other company is doing maybe 200 plus something, so you get almost like 600, if I add the others, 600 to 700 kilometers will be done through PPP. Yes.
And what is the projection? If the deal goes through, at what level? 1, 2 years? What are you looking at?
Oh, the law gives them 365 days. Let's assume, the current state, we have 6 months maximum. So by 6 months, by December, I have to have finished the negotiations. Hopefully we can finish earlier. If they, I hope they can take our money. If I tell them cost of debt take less than go for this single digit and return the equity, then I shake hands. Then so whatever times get finished, then they have 365 days to get to financial closure. So you have financial closure. Then they plan to use 2 years to do the construction. So they plan to acquire way leaves between or whatever permits within this time. So by the time they go to financial closure and build the project in 2 years. So if you add 2 years plus maybe 6 months for financial closure, this takes us to maybe 2.5 years, less than 3 years. So maybe just early 2027, some of the projects will be finished by that time, so that Kenyans will start making benefits from that. I told her I need the ring system in Nairobi, like yesterday, because I can't assure Kenyans that tomorrow will have a blackout. Unfortunately, the constraints are so big in like the lines around Nairobi North, the lines in Western Kenya. We're not doing well.
Okay.
Sometimes I look at my phone, if it rings at night, I know somebody's telling me things.
There's a blackout. But engineer, you've told me the process and everything else. So where are we right now? That for this deal to be signed, what's the remaining process?
Okay, so once we finish negotiations, we finish the project agreement, we need to definitely clear with the PPP committee any conditions that were riding on their approval. We need the AG's approval. AG has to give a clean slate. Then we have good notification to cabinet.
Yes.
The law talks about notification, but I'm sure the interest that it has, it'll be more than a notification. So there are different levels of approvals that we have to get. Then definitely I'm spending, first I really appreciate the opportunity, part of this month and next month in terms of doing sensitization. I've been asked by quite a number of people to come and do sensitization. And Victor, sorry for this. I got a question by industry, insurance companies, Kenyans, pension schemes, and other players who are interested in asking me, how do they invest? Because right now most people invest in real estate. How do Kenyans invest in transmission infrastructure? So I think I have a session on 28th. I'll be trying to explain
Maybe
that.
You can give us a hint.
Yes. To us, again, it's an issue of cost of money, but there are many small projects because most banks, most financials don't take long-term financing. So, but I require a lot of reinforcement. For example, I have the Malindi transformer is full. Sometimes I feel sad for people in that area that we have to remove power from some of them. So that's such projects that are like reinforcement, transmission line, substation, the rest that don't require heavy investment, I believe can easily be financed by Kenyans. The good thing is that I'll have to pay back in Kenya shillings, not in dollars. So to me, I'm really excited to hear Kenyans are really interested in investing in this area, because I still believe pension schemes can get a better deal from energy than even real estate. But that's the discussion we'll have with them.
Okay, so let's go back to the process you're talking about so that you can sign the deal, the process remaining, so that we hit the ground running.
Yes, so right now, what I'm going to spend time is negotiating the project agreement, because it's key. There are a number of clauses. Those are the terms that need to be handled with care, because they will be there for 30 years. That means my grandson will be inheriting some of these things. So that's what we need to get on board. We have a very good legal team that is supporting us to ensure that is done. So that's number one. The other thing is to get the numbers. The company is doing price discovery right now, so that they're getting the EPC cost. That's why I was confident we are going to reduce the prices. Issues of getting about the cost of way leaves and taxes, because those are 80% of the cost. We want to really firm them up so that we're clear about the numbers, push them as much as possible to get a better cost of debt. I'm really excited that the Federal Bank of US is meeting today and tomorrow. We're hoping the interest rates are going to come down so that we get something better come into the system. Then we try to reduce the rate equity. Unfortunately, when Kenya Moody downgraded Kenya, again the cost of financing Kenya increased. Those are things that we're hoping to be sorted out before the financial closure, so that we can get this positive thing. But I can assure you, every project we have taken is adding value.
Yeah.
I know I've talked about the big project. I have a substation in Thuodboro at Sondu. People in that area, anybody who comes from that area knows power comes from a long distance. Power is poor quality. I really feel very bad when I see the comments on people. And that's one of the substation we're putting on board with Adani Energy Solution, hopefully within before the financial closure, so that people in that area can get a step down 33, and that can supply power in that area, even as you continue the line. So every project we are putting, there's no project that is out of our process, and all of them are extremely urgent, that the grid requires them like tomorrow. Yes.
I've just received a message here. Somebody's asking, what about the Turkana wind power project? Is it able to and enough to power us?
Yes. Again, first, yes, the wind regime is extremely good in Turkana. They're able to supply sometimes 300 megawatts of power. But during the rainy season, unfortunately, Kenya, when it rains, the wind goes down. They're able to go down almost to zero. So it fluctuates up and down. But it's quite, right now, before the rainy season, it's quite good. Yeah. I think even at a time on Sundays, if I'm not wrong, there's a day it actually supplied 17% of the power that was being consumed in the country. So it's performing well. Kenyan are interested in Marsabit wind. We're doing a line from Longalani to Marsabit to Isiolo. So we hope that will be that, but that is not PPP. That's DFI financing. And Kenyan also want to put a power plant there, and that's why we're putting this redundancy to ensure that power can flow in different directions. We'll put the line in Losuk to allow, Losuk is just off Marala on the same line, to allow power to flow to Western Kenya from, again, the wind plant. There's very good wind in regime in Turkana.
Okay.
Yes.
And finally, the engineer, you know, the whole of this deal has been shrouded with a lot of rumors and all that. What's something good you can tell us that perhaps Kenyans do not know, so that even me, sitting on this set, I can go home and say, I think there is some hope for this country?
Okay, let me first talk about these companies briefly. I'm not a salesman for this project.
You can try.
But what I just give the assurance is I know Adani, there's been a lot, but let me talk about Adani Energy Solution, because at least the numbers I have. And Waziri talked about this. They have close to 22,000 kilometers of transmission lines currently, circuit kilometers. So that is more than what Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Somali, and parts of DRC. They have a bigger network, both in terms of lines and substations, more than we have.
I see.
Power Grid that is working with Africa 50 has, I think, very close, maybe half what is sub-Saharan Africa. Everybody from West Africa to whatever, it has more than that. So we're bringing players that have a lot of experience in terms of investment. For me, the most important thing, and I assure you, Victor, what I have to do as an MD and my team, we have to ensure first the project agreement is done perfectly, because it's something that will live for long. That's one of the things. And secondly, I have to get your best deal in terms of financing, because I need this line to supply you. I need this level of redundancy to supply you. So you just know that, Victor, we are going to fight for it. We'll continue, unfortunately, and one of the feedback we've been receiving is that we needed more public sensitization, more sharing of information, what is happening, and we'll try our best to be able to be sharing more information. Definitely everything will be made transparent. There's no way I can assure EPRA is going to approve a tariff that is coming in Kenya, I can assure you.
Engineer, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Victor.
That is the best place. I think I'll be going home and sleep tonight. A happy Kenyan. That is Engineer John Mativo, Managing Director, KETRACO. He's just giving us A to Z on what you should be expecting in this Adani and KETRACO deal in as far as power construction and distribution in the country is concerned. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we still have more on Good Morning Kenya. Stay with us. Up next is Weather Forecast.